Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to the Kindness Advantage. I am your host, Cindy Rowe, and today is another special episode because I have a guest. I have a friend here all the way across the pond, and I am serious. She is across the pond. When we say that, she is coming in from Australia, and I would love to everybody to give a warm welcome to my friend Gabi. How are you?
I am so good, thank you. It's a bit of a rainy morning here in Sydney, but it's another good day.
And we have beautiful warm weather where I'm at. So maybe you'll the sun will come out later on. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me here today. And just to give a point of reference for my listeners, Gabby and I met through LinkedIn through a Kindness at Work group that we have where we've got kindness friends all over the globe that meet up virtually every month to share what's happening in our world and how we are spreading kindness or bringing kindness as a movement in our communities. And that's how we've met. So it is a true honor to have you here, Gabby. Can you share with the listeners, what you do in the kindness realm and, what your profession is and all the good stuff?
100%. I just have to say before I do that, when I came across this group on LinkedIn and I went to our first meeting, well, the first meeting I attended, just my mind was blown. I could not believe that there were people all over the world, as you say, who are doing this kind of work. And I felt so sort of value aligned with the community which I walked into. So what a privilege that's been. So yeah, thank you for the very warm welcome. My name is Gabby, as Cindy mentioned, and I am many things, but my profession is that I'm a senior lecturer here at the University of New South Wales in Sydney. I teach in the business school. I mostly teach around management. I teach in the School of Management. Most of the sorts of subjects that I teach around are things like sustainability, things like ethics. I teach around communication skills. So we're doing a lot of thinking about how can we make sure that our students are equipped to be going out into the world when they graduate, into jobs, hopefully, but also kind of constantly thinking, how can we make sure that they leave here not just finding a job and contributing to industry, but actually making the world a better place? And I think my kindness mission that very much underpins all the work that I do in my teaching, in my relationships here at the uni with students, with staff at all kinds of levels. I think that's where the kindness piece really fits in as well, is thinking, not just how can we live our everyday, not just how can we do the core work of a university, but how can we make that really meaningful? How can we ensure that it's making the world better, not making the world worse?
Yeah, that such incredible work that you do anyway, beyond, the kindness aspect. Like you're really helping these young minds become great humans out in the workforce. And I think one of the really cool aspects that we all have to realize is that we are just one person. Like we are professionals and we have our personal life, but we're still just one person. So the core value that we have really reflects everywhere where we show up. So the work that you're doing and making sure that these students are basically becoming great professionals, but also becoming great people first, right? And then that's how they'll be able to contribute to their job or to their communities that they serve. So that's really cool. How long have you been in that role?
So I've been here in Sydney for just over 3 years, but I've been teaching in higher education for, gosh, I think it's probably almost 20 years now. I'm from South Africa originally, and sort of I've worked at all levels of the university system, sort of starting off as a casual, then we can talk a little bit more about how the higher education system can be quite hard work and is not always the kindest place by nature. But I worked through those various levels of the system, moving finally to permanent position, and I got my PhD in higher education studies as well along the way. And all of that, you know what it's like, Cindy, you do all of these different things in your life and you're thinking, why am I doing this piece? Why am I doing that? And then suddenly it all comes together and makes sense. And that's really what I was lucky enough to find here at my role at UNSW, which is about business teaching, which I love, but has expanded to be about so much more, which I'm really passionate about, but also just feel really lucky that I teach in a university that enables this kind of growth.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so, how did kindness become part of your world to where you wanted to incorporate it at the higher educational level and at the university?
It's a great question. So I will say that I've always cared really deeply about the well-being of the students that I teach.
Mm.
I don't think I realized this about myself before I started teaching, but I've realized I'm a really relational person. Like I love forming connections with people. I love hearing their stories. I love responding to them and growing through that. And actually, teaching is just the ultimate profession for that because I'm around people so much. And
Right.
again, we have to say higher education, there's a lot of different stakeholders. So students are incredibly important, and I think should be the core of everything that we do here as staff. But as well as that, I'm working with stakeholders from industry. I'm working with my amazing colleagues. We've got our professional staff who actually make everything happen at various levels. And university, in a way, is a bit of an ecosystem, right? Or a microcosm of society, we could say, made up of all different people with different needs and diverse backgrounds and interests. So I think that core value that I've always had around relationality, about care, respect, the university is a great place for me to live that value out. But for me here at UNSW, the kindness stuff has become much more explicit than perhaps it was before. It's a lovely story, actually, how this became a focus of mine here. Quite soon, so I arrived in Australia. I didn't know anybody. I arrived at this job. I didn't know the university. There's a lot of acronyms in academia. I didn't know the acronyms. I didn't know the people. I was really just trying to figure my way out or figure my way through. And I was on a group call for one of I don't know, it was a big whole university meeting. There were hundreds of people on the call. I don't even remember the focus of it, but I do remember that the speaker, they were talking about something, and they mentioned the word kindness. And I'd been sort of sitting on this word. It had been playing in my mind. And I don't know, maybe as a new immigrant, it had been front of mind in my experience. But for some reason in the chat, I typed in like, oh man, I'm obsessed with kindness. Is anybody else into kindness at the moment? And a few people amazingly responded and were like, yeah, I really care about that. Now, remember, I didn't know anyone. I didn't know any of the acronyms. Still getting lost on campus. But I was like, hey, let's make some friends. So I noted down who those people were. After the meeting, I reached out to them. I was like, I don't know you, but would you like to talk about kindness in education sometimes? They were super keen. And so we set up a meeting, and I don't know, maybe there were 9 or 10 of us, and it started becoming a more regular thing. We began meeting every fortnight. We would talk about our experiences. We would talk about how we translate kindness to our students, what that does for us as educators, how that can spread amongst our colleagues as well. And that became something that, was really special for all of us. I'll tell you just one more. One more. The next step of that was that everywhere I went in the university, as I started becoming more established, began meeting more people, I would tell them about this group. And the people would say, oh, we love kindness too. I'm so into that. So it felt a bit like the ball rolling down the hill, the snowball, getting more and more and more. So eventually we started the next genesis of that, which we've called the Kindness Network. And I just love this group so much. I'm so proud of it and excited by it. We have now, I would say, we're nearly at 100 members of our kindness network here at UNSW. But the best part about it is that we have faculty across all levels. So from PhD students and postdocs all the way to full professors. We've got deans of units. We've got people who just started yesterday. We've got a lot of professional staff as well who add so much expertise and, like I said before, make so much happen at the university. And we're just slowly building this community of like-minded people who care, and people who are fully committed to ensuring that the university doesn't just become, another big business, just another sort of cog in the societal wheel, but becomes somewhere that really beautiful stuff can happen. So universities can be very siloed. Often if you teach accountants, but you'll be in the accounting department and you'll know your accounting colleagues, and it can be quite, you yeah, you don't really often get to reach out. But what I love about this community we're building is that it's fully interdisciplinary, cross faculty, and just the most beautiful space for people who really care about what the university can be.
That's great. So do you have the dynamic that you've created with this network, do you do certain programs at the university level with the students, or is it just more of like brainstorming and, or have certain initiatives happened because of that network?
So we've done a couple of things. We've written a few pieces which have got published, and not academic pieces, more education focused, popular stuff, I suppose, which has got a really lovely following and great responses from people. We launched a kindness app at the end of last year, which I'd love to tell you about afterwards, but that was a really exciting program that we did as well. And we have plans for things that we want to do, but I would say right now we're very much at the community building phase. And I think that there's something really important and beautiful about community building at the moment. And this is something I've been reflecting on so much, because I'm just so aware about how polarized society is and how divisive so much rhetoric is, and how we're just finding so many ways to dislike the person who is sitting next to us. Even
Right.
without knowing them, you find out that they think something different or they believe something different, and that's it, they're out. It's anger, it's toxic. And like I'm so aware as an educator, but also probably just as a human, that we need to be doing this better.
Yeah.
And to me, that I've just been thinking these sort of intentional communities, I
Mm.
think is such a powerful way of countering this. So yeah, to me, that community building aspect of what we're doing with the Kindness Network is not sort of arbitrary, just another growth phase. For me, it is the work. And yeah, I like to make things happen and do things and move and deadlines and output, but actually I'm learning that actually part of what makes what we're doing special is this kind of organic feel of how it's emerging.
Yeah, but you're building a strong foundation for creating legacy years and years and years down the road. Like that's what's powerful. Like you guys are taking that time and building that community. And what I loved when you said, like, one, you love, like, forming connections, and that's really what this network is allowing you to do. We are in such a high connected society with social and all this technology, yet we are so disconnected to the person sitting next to us, and their, like, loneliness is on, like, a major rise because we are isolating ourselves by being behind our phones and being behind our screens. And this type of community where you actually, even if you are meeting virtually or together, you're still like-minded individuals wanting to make the world better, your community, your university better. And there's something really powerful to be said about that. In one of my previous episodes, I talked about the, the world is not black and white like some people want to see it. There's that gray area that we need to live in a little bit. And you can have an idea and I could have the opposite idea, and we can still find that gray area where we can still get along and still be, able to build a wonderful network with each other. And I think that comes down to kindness and being willing to embrace other people's ideas, embrace other people's backgrounds, and let them come and share their ideas and feel safe sharing them. And you never know what's going to come out of those conversations, and the connection that you might find on a totally different level if you were just to be able to live in that gray area a little bit, instead of like, Gabi likes that and I like that, and so we can't work really well together,
I just could not agree with you more. I think it is so critical that this is happening now, that we're doing this work. And I think as educators, that's got to be part of our responsibility.
Mhm.
Again, we want to get our students out of uni. We want to equip them. We want to make them job ready. We want to do all of that. Absolutely. But I will never stop believing that universities serve a societal purpose beyond just
Oh,
feeding students to industry. We are where brilliant students come to to learn, to grow, to develop. And as educators, that's a radical responsibility that we have.
for sure.
And if we're not doing that amongst ourselves, we're not going to filter that down to our students as well. And just as you were talking, I was thinking about how critical this is, particularly in as an educator, as a university in an AI age,
Oh,
because we're facing so much turmoil now around what the AI can do, what the AI can't do. If AI can write your reports, then what are you teaching a student to do? And I think
mhm.
that answer to that question about what are we teaching a student to do is that we should be teaching our students to be more human, to be better human, to sit in the gray, to feel all the feelings. And my colleague teaches paradox theory, and I just keep thinking about that, to be able to sit in a situation where you've got different ideas and find a way forward. The machines can't do that, right? They're just going to
Right.
tell you the black or the white. We as humans need to be able to navigate that gray, and that takes real kind of human to human connection. That
Mhm.
takes it takes a confidence, that takes the emotional intelligence, all of those factors. So that, I think, is what we need to be really pushing. Um, and for our network, there are 100 of us now. I don't know, maybe half of us actually teach in the classroom, but imagine if we get to go out into our classrooms and we're feeling so nourished and inspired by this kindness. We spread that off to our students, and we think about ways that we can make sure that we're communicating, we're engaging, we're building our students with kindness.
Yeah.
I have on average 1,000 students in my class every term. So imagine if like just half of them go out and start to engage more kindly with those around them. That's 500 humans out in the world, different parts, communities, countries, professions. Imagine if they are kind. Like, just for me, I see this like
Yeah.
ripple down of just societal betterment, and surely that's what we've got to be aiming for.
Yeah. The ripple effect is so far beyond what we imagine. And just your simple example of, if half of the people took one thing away from your experience and their experience in your classroom and it with you, and it went positive, and like that ripple effect, the amount, like it's endless of what it's exciting. And I think that the people that aren't involved in kindness work on a regular basis, I think they don't think of that
Mm,
ripple effect that has, just like toxicity, right? That has the same type of ripple effect. Which one would
mm,
you rather have,
right.
right?
Okay.
And you're a leader, and you're creating leaders in your classroom in every aspect of the way. In what you're modeling is what they're going to take and become there. So you have a choice and they have a choice, and you're expending it to be a positive experience, and even taking it like a step further than, I you know I'm the professor and I'm sharing how to do this, but I have a responsibility to make sure that they are human, and their well-being is in my
Mhm.
hands, and I want them to be better people after they've taken one of my courses or participated in one of my lectures. I want them to be better off, and that's honestly incredible that you even think that far, and the work that you're doing, and that the way it's combining with all those people that is in your kindness network. I mean, I think that, I don't know if there's other universities that are doing anything nearly like that. And I think that's pretty powerful. I mean,
Uh,
I haven't heard, but I mean, I don't like, I think it's pretty incredible.
So there are, and that was going to be the next thing that I was saying is like I started talking about this, I blog about this, it's like my spoken
Mhm.
at conferences, and every time I meet people from different universities who say, "Oh, this is amazing! Wow, I'm doing something like this," and so we've made lovely connections. I've managed to make some
Wonderful.
research connections, interest connections with people at unis here in Australia, but even abroad. What excites me is that there are so many people who are excited about this mission, and it becomes, we spoke at the beginning about that idea of building communities. That extends, to higher education, in other places as well. And so I just want to keep growing that. I want to keep connecting with more people doing this kind of work. I can tell you a bit more about our app last year because that was really cool. But someone from a uni in the States has seen what we've done, wants to launch an app, the same kind of app in their university. So, like you said, ripple effects, right?
Yeah, and it's all positive. It's all positive ripple effect. What do you think maybe the misconceptions are of kindness in like higher ed?
I'm so glad you asked me that. I think one of the things that we find when we talk to academics and we talk around this idea of kindness is that they are concerned that their kindness is going to get interpreted by students as a weakness.
Mhm.
So, they think, oh, I'm going to stand up in front of students. And if I'm smiling and if I'm too nice and if I'm doing lots of, if I'm open to their input, then they're going to think I'm weak and they're going to walk all over me. So I would say that is one of the big misconceptions about it. I would say another one that exists is this sort of, I remember back when I was doing my PhD, I read about it's like the struggle narrative that some academics might have, where they're like, well, I had to struggle. No one helped me. I had to sit up all night over the candle, like, and write my thesis with a pen. And, no one was there. So if I struggled, they need to struggle. I think that's another misconception. So there are those that abound. But I will also say that this work isn't always easy within a university system. It doesn't, it's not this kind of kindness stuff is not always enabled, and that's something that we have to reckon with as academics. Our classes are getting bigger. Like I said, I teach on average more than 1,000 students a term. That's challenging to show kindness, to make 1,000 students feel seen, acknowledged, and heard. So that's one factor, is this massification. Another factor I would say is that our workload is increasing. So, you teach so much. How do you take that time to really stop, consciously think, where can I input kindness in this process? So I would say that that's another factor. And then the third one I would say is, if you look at the figures at well-being and burnout for academic staff, it's like incredibly high.
Right.
Our work is taxing. It's not easy. And when you open the doors, when you care and you open the doors to caring, that can start to become all consuming. I mean, I have colleagues who are sitting all night writing emails to students who are struggling, placing them in, sort of pointing them towards mental health services, listening to their stories, finding ways to personally get involved. It's not easy work. And it's also not easy work. And it's not necessarily recognized in the criteria that advance us individually through the university.
Yeah.
So, I'm very lucky here at UNSW, and the nature of my role means that I've got time to do a bit of this. But many of my colleagues are under a lot of pressure to publish. That's how they get seen. That's how they get hired. That's how they get tenure. That's how they get promotion. Are you getting the right papers in the right journals? In that kind of pressure, when so many people don't find academic jobs, how do you then also have the resources to be kind to others? And I've heard on your podcast, Cindy, where you talk about we need to be kind to ourselves and you can't pour from an empty cup. But when your cup is empty, and in higher education systems are often set up in such a way that our academic cups are very empty, how do we still find the way to pay it forward? And that's another place, I think, where our kindness network is really supportive, because we talk a lot about what can we be doing for ourselves, what can we do for each other, how can we help build each other up, and give us the strength and the energy and the inspiration to keep going forward.
Yeah. And, I don't work a lot with universities. I've spoken at a few higher educational conferences, but the problems you're sharing are similar to the problems of leadership, right? And I think it goes all like across the board in all different types of industries. And when I speak about kindness as a leader, the first thing is, that's weak. I don't get pushover. I don't, It's not. It's actually completely opposite of that. It takes a lot of strength. It takes a lot to pull from within to give. And like you said, making people feel seen, valued, and heard while you are balancing all the other plates that you have. So I think it's not there's so much similarities across all of the industries, to where kindness, there is a lot of misconceptions. And I think our work, the ones that put in and keep showing up and sharing how important it is and sharing how it impacts, will eventually crack through. But on the other hand, like you're saying, like you're pouring from an empty cup all the time. You know, as a leader, you're pouring from an empty cup all the time. You have to fill yourself up first. How do you do that? And also on my podcast, I've always shared about intentional kindness. And when that's a core value of yours, when you are approaching daily life intentionally with kindness, it gets easier in the everyday interactions, in those struggles, in those hard conversations, in when you've got 1,000 people coming at you and how do you make them feel special? Like it becomes a little bit easier than like, oh, there's something else I have to do. I also say too that we're human, right? And we have to give ourselves grace. We can't show up all the time 100%. And it's okay, right? It's okay to have that. The network that you're building, I love it because just as you said, you can lean on each other. And how do we help each other through this? And you have those conversations. And the great part is, even if you're, making one step a day forward, you're still making a huge impact. And that can't be, shined on enough. You're making a dent in people's lives, and that's incredible. And we want instant change, right? Because, well, we're so used to it, right? But it does take time, and it takes consistency, it takes intentionality, and it takes people like us to keep bringing it up, that it's important work. And I applaud you for that.
Oh, thank you. But I also have to say it's such a sort of group effort here in terms of that network, and they're just unbelievable people. And I just feel so privileged by the fact that I've got this network has been a way to connect with other people and learn from them and get inspired by them. And also my students are amazing for the most part, just little things like little notes at the end of a lecture to say, thank you so much, that was fascinating, or, emails at the end of term, or smiles or questions. And the relationality, being kind to students is, it can drain, as you say, but you get it back so much when you do. And that feeling gives you a sense of purpose about what am I doing here? And it gives you a sense of meaning for like, oh, my job has purpose in the world. I'm here to do good in the world, and it gives you energy when you feel like you're making a real difference. I saw another podcast you did was about the sort of science behind why kindness works. And I think one of the things that I get to experience every day is that little pop, that positivity that I get when I am able to have a beautiful moment with a student. So that's definitely a pro of my job, having those moments.
That's wonderful. Well, we're coming up to our time, and I just want to, maybe if you have a final comment or anything that you'd like to share, we'll definitely share your contact information, connect with you on your website and your blog on LinkedIn. But yeah, if you have any final thoughts or words that you'd like to wrap things up with, I'd love to give you that floor.
Final words and wrap. I think just that last thing that I would like to point out is kind of the first thing that I spoke about, which is around how if you read enough of the news, you can want to crawl into a little hole and go to bed for, I don't know, 500 years, like Sleeping Beauty. But, I'm trying really hard to navigate through this difficult time in society by being engaged, by being active, by
Mm.
forming those connections, by making new friends, by building more community, by finding people who share my values and amplifying that in a really active way. And I guess my message would be for people who are feeling similarly like this is a very challenging time. What I want to say is that we don't have to sit back passively and just take it all in. We can do stuff. We can do positive things that makes a real difference in the world. And I've had the opportunity to be part of that with the Kindness Network. So, for people, different industries, different backgrounds, that the action that you take will be different, but it does kind of bring back hope and meaning and agency, which I think is incredibly valuable at this time.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you nailed it. That was a perfect way to end
Good.
it.
Okay, I got it.
I love it. That was, wrap it up and put a pretty bow on top. Thank you so much, Gabi. It was such a pleasure and honor to have our conversation today, and I really do appreciate your time, and so glad we could connect. I know the time difference is massive, but I really do appreciate hearing from you and getting your perspective and all the things that you're doing over in Sydney. I really do appreciate it. And you can find Gabi at thekindacademic.com. I'll put it in the show notes, also where you can find her on LinkedIn as well. So thank you again, Gabi. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. This was such a pleasure.
And for everybody here that have been listening, watching us, if you found value of this, I would love a 5-star rating. It means so much to us podcasters that just do this because we care and we want to get our word out into the community. And also, if you found value, please share it. Share it with a friend. Maybe they can learn something from it. And I will leave you like I always leave you. Together, we create waves of change through kindness. Thanks for watching.